The auction block. The sun hung heavy over the frontier town, beating down on the dusty street where townsfolk had gathered, their voices low with curiosity and cruelty. The wooden platform in the center of the square creaked beneath the boots of the auctioneer, a stout man with a red face and greedy eyes. His voice carried like a whip. "Step right up, gentlemen. A fine pair today, mother and child, strong enough for work, pretty enough to please. The Baron himself has shown interest, so if you want to compete, you'd best dig deep into your pockets." A ripple of laughter rolled through the crowd, mixed with whispers of fear. Everyone knew what it meant when the Baron bought women. The cruel landowner ruled his estate like a kingdom, using and discarding lives as if they were tools. The mother standing on the platform, her hands bound loosely in front of her, knew it too. She held her daughter close. The little girl was no more than 8, small and frail, her black hair tangled, her dress worn thin. Tears streaked her cheeks as she clung to her mother's side. The mother whispered fiercely, "Don't let go of me, May. Whatever happens, stay with me." The girl nodded, though her wide, terrified eyes betrayed her fear. The crowd murmured as the Baron himself stepped forward. He was a large man, broad-shouldered, his wealth displayed in the polished buttons of his coat and the heavy gold ring on his hand. His face carried a smug expression, his mustache twitching as he grinned at the trembling woman and child. "I'll start the bidding at $50, he said, his voice oily, certain that no one would dare to compete with him. The auctioneer clapped his hands. $50. A fine opening. Who'll make it 60? Silence. The townsfolk shifted uncomfortably, no one willing to anger the Baron. Some looked away, unable to watch, while others stared with hungry eyes, enjoying the suffering. The little girl's heart pounded. She scanned the crowd desperately, searching for a kind face. Her gaze fell on a tall man standing near the back of the square. He was unlike the others, not laughing, not whispering. He stood still, arms crossed, his hat pulled low against the sun, watching with an unreadable expression. His clothes were plain, worn from labor, and his boots carried the dust of the trail. His face was weathered, with a scar that cut across his cheek, but his eyes, dark and steady, met hers. Something in them was different. Not cruel, not mocking. Just human. The girl let go of her mother's hand and stumbled through the crowd, tears blurring her sight. She grabbed at the stranger's sleeve with both hands, looking up at him. "Please, sir," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please buy me and my mama. If they sell us to the Baron, he'll hurt us. We won't live." The man looked down at her, stunned by the small, desperate hands clutching him. For a moment, the noises of the auction faded. He saw her tear-streaked face, her trembling shoulders, and the silent plea in her eyes. Something inside him shifted, a place he thought long dead stirred. The auctioneer's voice rang out again. 60. Do I hear 60? The Baron smirked, confident in his control. But then a low voice broke through the crowd. "You don't need to beg, child." The girl turned, confused. The man stepped forward, his boots striking the dust. He looked straight at the Baron, his voice carrying without effort. "You and your mama," he said to the girl. "You're already mine." The crowd gasped. The Baron's smug grin froze into a glare. The auctioneer, blinking in surprise, recovered quickly. "Ah, $60, from the gentleman in the back. Do I hear 70? The Baron's lip curled. 100. The man didn't flinch. 200. Murmurs rippled. That was no small sum. Whoever this stranger was, he was risking everything. The Baron growled. 300. The mother on the platform stared, her breath catching. Who was this man? Why would he risk so much? The stranger's jaw tightened. His hand slipped into the pouch at his belt, the weight of years of saved earnings, money meant for supplies, for rebuilding his ranch, for survival. He thought of the girl's small hands clutching his sleeve, her voice trembling with terror. 400, he said, steady as stone. A hush fell. The Baron's face turned red with rage. He opened his mouth, but then snapped it shut. 400 was more than even he wanted to spend. With a curse under his breath, he stepped back. The auctioneer, grinning wide, slapped the block with his hand. "Sold! To the gentleman for $400. The crowd erupted with whispers. The mother and daughter were led down from the platform, their ropes cut. The girl ran straight into the man's arms, burying her face against his chest. He froze, unused to such contact, then gently rested a hand on her back. The mother approached slower, her eyes sharp with suspicion. She was beautiful despite her weariness, her features delicate yet strong. She looked the man up and down. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice guarded. "Why would you do this? What do you want from us?" The man met her gaze evenly. His voice was quiet, but firm. "I don't want anything. You needed saving. That's enough." The Baron's glare burned into the back of his head, but the man didn't turn. He guided the mother and child away from the square, his arms steady around the girl's shoulders. They walked out of town together, three strangers bound by a choice that had changed everything. The girl looked up at him with wide eyes. "What's your name?" He hesitated, then said, "Call me Daniel." She smiled faintly through her tears. "Thank you, Daniel." The mother said nothing, only walked beside them in silence, her mistrust like a shadow. But Daniel knew one thing. His life, long empty and silent, had just been altered forever. A home, not a prison. The wagon creaked beneath the weight of supplies as Daniel guided the horse along the lonely trail. The sun had begun its slow descent, staining the horizon with amber and crimson. Behind him, on a blanket spread over the wooden boards, May leaned against her mother, fighting sleep. Her small body sagged with exhaustion, though her grip on her mother's hand never loosened. Daniel sat straight, silent as the wheels rumbled over the dirt road. He was a man used to silence, and for years it had been his only companion. Yet the weight of two new lives now pressed into the space he had once called emptiness. The mother spoke at last, her voice quiet but sharp, as though cutting through the air. "You spent $400 on us." Daniel didn't glance back. "I did. You expect me to believe you did it out of kindness? That you don't expect repayment?" Her suspicion was raw, laced with bitter experience. Daniel kept his eyes on the trail. "You don't owe me anything. Not money, not your work, not your body. I'm not the Baron." Silence followed, heavy with disbelief. May stirred against her mother, half asleep, whispering, "Mama, I like him. He feels safe." The woman's throat tightened. She looked at Daniel's back, broad and steady in the fading light. But her arms wrapped protectively around May, as if daring him to prove otherwise. Arrival at the ranch. It was near nightfall when the wagon turned into a valley. A weathered wooden gate stood at the entrance to sprawling land, fields of dry grass swaying under the dusk, a corral, a small barn, and a modest but solid ranch house with smoke curling faintly from its chimney. Daniel stopped the wagon and dismounted. "This is it." May blinked sleepily at the sight. "Is this where you live?" He nodded. "Where you live now, too?" The mother stiffened at his words. "We don't belong here." Daniel met her gaze for the first time since leaving town. "You belong anywhere you're safe. That's what matters." He lifted May gently from the wagon. The girl clung to his neck for a moment before he set her down. She smiled shyly, then darted to explore the yard, chasing fireflies that had begun to blink in the evening air. The mother climbed down slower, her eyes scanning the land, measuring it. The ranch was simple, but it breathed honesty. It was no palace, no prison, just a man's attempt at home. Inside the house, Daniel lit a lantern. The warm glow revealed a sturdy table, a stone fireplace, shelves stacked with tools and supplies. The air smelled faintly of pine and smoke. "There's only one bedroom," Daniel said. "You and the girl take it. I'll sleep by the fire." The mother frowned. "Why?" "Because you're guests. And because you don't trust me yet." His words carried no accusation, only truth. Her lips parted, but no answer came. She guided May into the room, still holding on to the protective shell around her heart. Days of uneasy peace. The first days passed slowly. Daniel rose before dawn, working the land, fixing fences, tending the animals. May followed him often, skipping at his side, peppering him with questions. "Do you have children, Daniel?" "No." "Why not? Life didn't work out that way. Do you want them?" His silence stretched too long before he finally said, "I don't know." The girl seemed satisfied anyway, running off to chase chickens near the barn. Her mother, whose name Daniel finally learned was Lien, kept her distance. She cooked meals, cleaned, and tended to May, but every movement seemed guarded, as though preparing to flee at the first sign of betrayal. One evening, as they ate by the fire, Lien asked quietly, "Why live all the way out here alone?" Daniel poked at the flames with a stick. His scar caught the light, a pale line against sun-worn skin. "I fought in the war. Lost more than I gained. When it was over, I came here. Silence suited me better than people." Lien studied him, trying to read the man who had bought her freedom yet asked nothing in return. There was sadness in him, she realized, and perhaps a kind of loneliness that mirrored her own. A child's laughter. For May, the ranch became a playground. She laughed again, bright, unbroken laughter that echoed against the hills. She picked wildflowers, braided grass into crowns, and left them on Daniel's workbench. He never wore them, but each time, he placed them carefully on the mantel above the fire. One afternoon, she brought him a drawing scratched in charcoal on scrap wood. "It's us," she said proudly. "You, Mama, and me." Daniel looked at the stick figures, crude but clear. A tall man, a woman with long hair, and a little girl holding both their hands. His throat tightened unexpectedly. He set the drawing on the mantel too. Lien saw it later. Her chest ached, torn between gratitude and fear. She couldn't allow herself to hope, not yet. Shadows of the Baron. Word traveled faster than the wind in small towns. By the end of the week, Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before the Baron acted. One evening, as the sky deepened into violet, riders appeared at the edge of the valley. 4 men on horseback, their torches flickering in the dark. Daniel stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. Lien pulled May inside, clutching her close, fear flashing across her face. The lead rider sneered. "The Baron says the woman and her brat belong to him. You can't just buy what's his." Daniel's voice was iron. "I paid the price. They're free now." The rider spat in the dirt. "Not how the Baron sees it. You hand him over, or we'll take him." The rancher raised his rifle slightly, steady as stone. "This land is mine. That woman and child are under my roof. If you think you can take them, then step forward and see how far you get." For a tense moment, only the crackle of torches and the restless snort of horses filled the night. The riders exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected fear, compliance, not a man who stood ready to fight to the death for 2 people he'd only just taken in. Finally, the lead rider snarled, "This isn't over. The Baron doesn't forgive. He'll come himself next time." They wheeled their horses and thundered back into the darkness. A choice. When the sound faded, Daniel lowered the rifle. Inside, Lien was waiting, her eyes wide, May clutched against her chest. "You would have killed for us," she whispered. "I would have," Daniel said simply. "Why?" "We're nothing to you." Daniel looked at her, his scarred face illuminated by lantern light. "Because no one deserves chains. And because that girl grabbed my hand and asked me to save her. That was enough." Lien's lips trembled. She pressed her forehead to May's hair, tears spilling silently. 4 years, she had trusted no man, believed no promise. But here stood one who asked nothing, yet gave everything. May wriggled from her arms and ran to Daniel, hugging his leg. "I told you, Mama. He's safe." Daniel placed a hand gently on her head, his voice low. "You're safe here. Both of you." And for the first time in many years, Lien allowed herself to believe it. That night, as the fire crackled and the stars spread across the endless sky, 3 broken lives began, slowly, to knit into one. The Baron's shadow loomed beyond the valley, but within the small ranch house, there was warmth, fragile, precious, and fiercely protected.